Dr. Ayo Olatunji. I'm an NHS doctor. I did my medical school at UCL, University College London, um, alhamdulillah, convert to Islam as well, and of Black Nigerian heritage. And I think it's important in this community that we live in that we come to understand each other. That very sentiment actually led me to go to Bangladesh. I visited Bangladesh. I went to Balagonj, Dhaka, Ramsiri, and Jaflong. I don't know if any of those areas will ring any bells. But those are some areas I went to just to familiarize myself. I went there for a maternal aid project. I think living in London, it's important that we get to know each other as Muslims. We're from different cultures, backgrounds, ages, and heritage. And especially in this time when there are so many divisions amongst us as Muslims, it's important that we find ways to unite, we find a common ground, we find an understanding of who we are. As the youth come and get older, we're going to see more trials. Social media is a big thing. There are a lot of trials facing our youth, and the tradition of Islam is becoming quite lost. Right? A lot of people don't get their teachers and their Islam. There's no such thing as a black Muslim. It's either an African Muslim or a Caribbean Muslim. So this is just going to go through, how being black and being Muslim, they're very linked, and what the link between them is. So this is just the agenda. Can you see this, the whole slide here? Okay, you're not seeing my notes. Okay, so none of you can cheat. All right, Bismillah. So this is just going to be just a brief agenda, but we're not maybe going to go through all of it just because of time, and I want to keep you engaged. But verses and hadith are very important, especially when we're talking about Islam. What does it mean to be black? Giving you an understanding of what does it mean to be black in the UK in this day and age. Black history in Islam. How did racism become entrenched into society, and examples of racism and anti-blackness in Muslim communities, and the solution to these things. So the first verse: such believers are the repentant, the worshippers, the praisers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the travelers for His cause, those who bow and prostrate in prayer, those who enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong, and those who observe the limits set by Allah and give good tidings to the believers. Right, so this is outlining what it means to be a worshipper, what it means to be a true believer. Right, and we're going to keep going through this theme, as unfortunately, in my experience, sometimes you can find in our community that some people think if they have a lighter skin, they're better than others. And if they have a darker skin, that means that they're not as good as other people, right? Or someone who has a darker skin isn't as good as another person. So this is putting it, reorientating ourselves to what it says in the Quran, reorientating ourselves to the straight path. Surah Hujurat, verse 13. O humanity, indeed we created you from male and female, and you into peoples and tribes, so that you may get to know one another. Surely the most noble of you in sight of Allah is the most righteous among you. Allah is truly all-knowing, all-aware. Some people say, Islam is colorblind. It doesn't recognize color, right? But Allah created me with this color skin for me. He created all of you with the color skin that you have for a reason. And to say, that we don't see color is to negate the fact that Allah created us with reason to get to know one another into different tribes, ethnicities, groups, backgrounds, right? So there's no need to take on this thing that Islam is colorblind, right? And also, to say Islam is colorblind, we forget that people still treat each other differently because of their color, right? As Muslims, we need to be understanding of the world around us, right? So this is what I take from that verse. The next verse, Surah An-Nisa, verse 135. O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it be against yourselves or parents and relatives. Whether one is rich or poor, Allah is more worthy of both. So follow not personal inclination, lest you not be just. And if you distort your testimony or refuse to give it, then indeed Allah is ever with what you do acquainted. Whenever I talk about this verse, for me, it really shows us that to be just and to be righteous It's not a choice in Islam, right? Whether we like somebody or we don't like someone, it's not a choice. We have to be just. We have to be just in our dealings. We have to be just in giving rights to others. And when we look at this verse, it talks about parents and relatives. You know, sometimes, I'm a young man. I'm 26, and I think sometimes with the elders, it can be quite difficult. You know, I don't have as much life experience as some of our elders here in the room, to be honest with you. However, I may still have perspectives that are valuable. And I think in order for us to come together as a community and the different generations as well, the elders and the youth to come together, we need to work with one another as well, right? I always tell the youth of my age that, when you're talking to your parents and your relatives, if you want to tell them they're wrong, that's not always going to be the best way. I know my parents are not going to accept it. I told them, Mom, that you're doing something wrong, right? We have to be honest with them. So there's a way to have a discussion about these things to try and guide each other to the right path. And the biggest one here is that to ourselves, it's very easy to tell lies to ourselves or to tell us that, no, I didn't do anything, to excuse ourselves from holding ourselves to account, right? But Umar radiallahu anhu said, take yourselves to account before you're taken to account, right? It's better to do it in this life than we have to be doing it in the next life, right? So it's important that we don't follow personal inclinations of what we think is right. There's a hadith I'm going to mention later from the Prophet around, there's no superiority over a black over a white skin, or a white skin over a black skin, or an Arab over a non-Arab, a non-Arab over an Arab. We all equal in the sight of Allah. And the best, in fact, the best of creation are the ones that keep striving to be good, that keep striving to do good deeds, that are repentant. Surah Baqarah, verse 177, righteousness is not that you turn your faces towards the east or the west, but true righteousness is in one who believes in Allah, the last day, the angels, the book, the prophets, and gives wealth in spite of love for it, to relatives, the orphans, the needy, the traveler, those who ask for help, and for freeing slaves. And who establishes prayer and gives zakat? Those who fulfill their promise when they promise, and those who are patient in poverty and hardship and during battle. Those are the ones who have been true, and it is those who are righteous. Again, this is reminding us, what does it mean to be righteous? I'll give you an example. There were, I had a brother at a recent talk, and he came to me and said one of his family members told him, not to sit next to a black person when they came to a restaurant. He said, don't sit there, he's black. These are Muslims, and it's very painful to hear that kind of thing from your Muslim brother and sister. Very extremely painful. These are the people that you're supposed to be praying next to in the mosque, and some people have these kind of sentiments in their heart, right? And it's causing divisions between us, right? Regardless of our skin color, right? Regardless of our skin color, we are supposed to be one ummah, one community, one body together, right? We shouldn't be saying to, fellow Muslims, yeah, don't sit next to him because he's black. They're not good people. How would others feel if the same was said about their cultures? People are not going to feel good about it, so we need to treat people how we want to be treated. And when we look at this verse from Surah Baqarah, it really shows us, demonstrates to us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, what does it mean to be righteous? He doesn't say anything about skin color. He's talking about the inner belief and the outer actions. That is what makes a Muslim righteous. So it's a couple of pages of hadith, inshallah, and then we'll start going into some more of the content. Whosoever of you sees an evil action, let him change it with his hand. And if he is not able to do so, then with his tongue. And if he is not able to do so, then with his heart. And that is the weakest of faith. And from what I've been taught, what we take from this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through this hadith, through the words of the Prophet has showed us the levels of pushing back against injustice and wrongdoing, right? So if we see something wrong, if we see somebody with darker skin or a black person in our community being mistreated, we should act against it. If we can't do that, then at least speak against it. It doesn't always mean you have to shout at the person or whoever who did something wrong. Sometimes maybe take them and you talk to them and tell them, brother, this was not the right thing to do, sister, this was not the right thing to do. We have an etiquette, adab of giving advice, right? Respectful way of giving advice, right? You continue to try and do that. And if you can't talk about it, then at least keep in your heart that is the wrong thing to do. Right? We have to remember, even in our hearts, sometimes you can't act. Many of us at some point would have seen a wrongdoing, and because of something, we can't act upon it. But at least in our hearts, we can recognize that was wrong. That shouldn't have happened. Even if I didn't act, at least next time maybe I'll act. But I know in my heart it was wrong. The next one, verily those who are fair will be in the presence of Allah upon pulpits of light. Near to the right hand of the merciful, they exalted, and both of its sides are right, being equal in honor. Those who practice justice in their rulings and with their families and know that they did. This demonstrates the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we are just and dutiful in our dealings. Right? All of us here is a leader, whether it's the leader of our household, leader in the masjid, leader in our university, leader at work or our community. Right? And so there are so many ways that we can find to instruct and bring others to good and to give them what their rights are. And we're told that if we do that, we'll be one of those who are raised on a pulpit, a pillar of light. Do not let yourselves become blind followers, saying that if people are good, then we will be good. And if they are unjust, then we will be unjust. Rather, make up your own minds. If the people are good, then be good. But if they are evil, then do not be unjust. This is telling Muslims to think for ourselves, right? Sometimes, because there's a group of people that are doing something a certain way and behaving a certain way, maybe sometimes you don't want to be left out, or we want to be part of the group. We end up just follow them, right? Because this brother usually he's doing the right thing, so he cannot be wrong. It's impossible that he cannot be wrong. We have to follow him. SubhanAllah, I think it was in 2018 on social media. There was actually an imam who, in the streets of Birmingham, he was shouting to Muslims passing by, warning them, don't be like these black brothers and sisters. Don't be like these black brothers and sisters. Don't be like them. Such a negative way of talking about us, right? It doesn't make people like me, black Muslims, feel part of the community. I could always have to convince people that I'm a good person. There's nothing wrong with me, right? Even you hear of many brothers and sisters that they're black and they find somebody they want to take as a spouse, right? But maybe they're from a different culture. Don't get me wrong, I'm a Nigerian. I know sometimes Nigerians like to go with Nigerians, right? Pakistanis like to go with Pakistanis, fair enough, right? If you want to stay in your culture, everyone can understand that. But when the reason now becomes because of skin color, because he has a dark skin, because he's black, because he's one of them, right? This is where problems start to come. And it causes a lot of trouble in the community. You have Muslims who both practicing, both good character, both trying to do what is allowed, getting married. And as I said, for youth these days, a lot of youth are struggling. I've seen it with my own two eyes at uni. I was at university for 7 years, so I studied medicine there. You see a lot of people coming, going. And people are struggling to keep themselves just, right? To not go and commit acts of sin that they shouldn't be doing. I've talked to brothers that are struggling with those kind of things. And so when you get some of them that now they're trying to do the halal, they're trying to do right by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And then, because of skin color, we can't. This is causing direct fitna, right? Causing direct fitna to practicing people with great characters, or people who are trying to do the best that they can, right? They're being stopped. We have to start thinking differently. We have to really start looking within ourselves. Do I have some of these beliefs, right? The process of tazkiyah, the process of purifying the soul, It's not an easy process. When you actually take the root letters of Arabic letters of the word of tazkiyah in Arabic, the word, you can make another word that now in Arabic will mean the purification of metals, like forming diamonds, right? Because that's what it takes. It's a lot of pressure on oneself. You have to question yourself. Could I have done better? Could I have done more? You know, continuously improve. So help your brother whether he's an oppressor or he's an oppressor. People asked, "Oh Allah's Messenger, it is all right to help him if he is oppressed, but how should we help him if he's an oppressor?" The Prophet ﷺ said, by preventing him from oppressing others, right? One of the meanings I took from this from discussion with others was that, you know, if someone is oppressing others, if someone is committing dhulm, and when we look at the meaning of dhulm, it's to either put hardship on another group of people or someone, or to remove the rights from that group of individuals or from someone. So you're either putting something extra or you're removing what is deserved. Yeah? And so when somebody oppresses another person, on the day of judgment, we have to answer for those things, right? So when you commit an act where you're oppressing another person, you're actually oppressing yourself, right? You're oppressing your own soul, because on the day of judgment, you'll be taken into account for how you treated others. So to stop someone from oppressing others, you stop them from oppressing themselves. O people, your Lord is one and your father Adam is one. There is no favor over an Arab over a foreigner. Some narrations say not Arab. Not a foreigner over an Arab. And neither white skin over black skin, nor black skin over white skin, except by righteousness have I not delivered the message. Right? And this was in the Prophet's last sermon. You know, it was part of his last message to his Muslim community. And I think it's very important, vital that, you know, we look at the significance of that, because when we look around the Muslim Ummah across the world, this issue of racism and disliking of darker skin colors is a problem. You know, if we go to the Middle East, you will see black people being taken as slaves. They'll come to work as maids and then their passports are taken from them, right? You know, in Tunisia, subhanAllah, there were videos that came out of black African migrants being kept in cages and being beaten. So there's so many of these issues going on at the moment. Allah Most High, this is the last one, has removed from you the pride of the pre-Islamic period and its boasting in ancestors. One is only a pious believer or a miserable sinner. You are sons of Adam, and Adam came from dust. That the people cease to boast about their ancestors. They are merely fuel in Jahannam, or they will certainly be of less account with Allah than the beetle which rolls down with its nose. This is telling us not to boast. You know, some people boast that I come from this lineage, I come from this set of people, that set of people, right? But at the end of the day, what is going to be looked at is our good deeds, not where did you come from, who are you descended from, you know? Me as a convert, right? You know, in my immediate line of my family, I'm not descended from any Muslims, at least as far as I can trace back. You know, it's not, you know, you're not going to look at lineage in that sense. You're going to look at your deeds. How did you behave? How did you treat others? What was your belief? You know, we'll be asked those three questions, the three questions that will be asked right when we enter the grave. Right? Who knows that? Say that again, brother? Yes, exactly. Yeah. And who's your prophet? Right? These are the questions that will all be asked. And at that time, the soul is not going to lie. Right? It's going to speak the truth of what it actually believed. Right? There's some people in this dunya at the moment, their prophet is their arrogance, their soul. Whatever they want to do, they just do it. Right? We don't want to be like that as Muslims. Sometimes we can start going that way if we're not careful. Which is why we have the message to bring us back to what is right, to get into our mind and tell us what is wrong and what is right. Sometimes we forget that's the nature of being a human being. But as a Muslim, as believing in the Quran and the message and the Sunnah from the Prophet, we have the guidance there to keep bringing us back to the straight path. So we're talking about blackness in Islam, and a lot of people. What does it mean to be black? SubhanAllah. What does it even mean? How can we describe it? And when you look at the black community, right, black African community, in the UK, the US, and the West, it's important to understand how this community came about, right? When we look at slavery, you will find that black Africans were taken from their homeland and dispersed all over the world. Most of them went to Brazil. After that, it was America, the US. After that, it was the Caribbean. Some went to South Asia, to India, they were shipped to. Some went to the UK and Europe. They were shipped all over. And imagine you have one people from one place, right? They're taken and they're shipped to so many different places. Many of them will still want to retain their culture, retain their roots and their origins. But some people can't do that. I know some friends, right? Some of them are in America. They can't trace their roots back, subhanAllah, because of slavery, or they cut those roots off, right? Not every black African is like that, right? But there's a significant amount of them. If you go to America, especially the Caribbean, especially, they can't trace their roots back. So what's a way of them to think of themselves, right? Black was a term, my skin color isn't actually black, right? It's brown. And a white person, when we say white, their skin color is not white. It's not actually that color. So where do these meanings come from, right? A lot of these terms were used in a negative way, actually, or black was used in a negative way. You may find even some people don't like to call themselves, some black people don't like to call themselves black, because they're trying to come to terms with the difficulty, with that label, right? But the community is different. What it is that for people that, for me, I'm originally Nigerian, right? If it wasn't for, the colonial regime of Britain and slavery, I probably wouldn't be here. Many of us are not even going to be here, to be honest with you. We're not going to be here. But black as a label is a way for me to connect back with my roots while I'm still in the UK. Right? So when some people say there's no such thing as a black Muslim, or just an African or a Caribbean Muslim, you have to understand that it's a bit complex, a bit difficult for some people. That black is the term that explains how they feel in the UK, right? How they express themselves in the UK. It's their identity, right? So does that make sense to everybody? Or does anyone want me to explain anything? Anything there? Questions on that before? Inshallah. And so I like to just bring this up just to show that countries have large populations of black Muslims. So again, I keep saying I'm Nigerian, you're not going to forget it by the end. So 50% of the population in Nigeria is Muslim. That is about 110, 120 million people. It's a lot of people. In Niger, which is near Nigeria, in Western Africa, 99% of the population is Muslim. Most of the population, that's about 14 million people. 99% of Somalis are Muslim. 91 to 97% of Sudanese people are Muslim. 96 to 95% of Senegalese people and Gambians are Muslim. 60% of Sierra Leoneans are Muslim in West Africa. You go to Ethiopia, the numbers can be different, but this is what I found, that 36% of Ethiopians are Muslim, 40 million. What's wrong? Is it wrong? Yes, you see, yeah. Is it more than that? Is it 50? Oh, alhamdulillah, yeah. So when I was looking online, I was seeing low numbers, but I know when I talk to Ethiopians, they say it's more, even majority is Muslim. And then when you go to like Southeast Africa, you find Uganda, Zimbabwe, a lot of these countries, Tanzania, a lot of them have large Muslim minority populations. 9 million, 10 million, 12 million. So there's a lot of black Muslims in the Ummah, we just don't know about it, right? So that's just a little bit of an understanding. So these are the terms for dark and black in classical Arabic text. I'll have the text that I got this from, and it's got all the Arabic references in it as well. So Adam, alayhi salam, that's the name of the first one of the first prophet. Adam alayhi salam, it means dark or very dark. That's what it means in Arabic. So Adam is to have said to have mean dark or made from earth. And people have differed in this over time, but the meanings don't contradict each other. Al-Dhahabi said in his book, Fiqh al-Lugha, if the blackness of a person exceeds Asmar, then he is Adam. So Adam is to be very dark. Akhdar is dark. Asmar is dark or brown. Asma alone is brown colored, and Aswad is black. Yeah, so in Arabic texts, right, before in the West when they're writing about black and things, it was already being spoken about in Arabic texts. So that's just some information there. Okay, so we have some companions of the Prophet. So each time I'm going to ask people if they knew any of these companions were black or dark in complexion. And maybe there'll be some surprises. But yeah, Bilal is going to be there. Everyone has to know that one. This is Ayman. So how many people knew about Ayman? Yeah, hands up. So the Prophet ﷺ referred to her as his mother after his own biological mother. And she looked after the Prophet ﷺ when his biological mother died, and she was of Abyssinian heritage, which some people say now is like modern day Ethiopia, that kind of land. And was at one point she was a slave, but she was later freed from slavery at that time. It was also reported that the Prophet ﷺ said that anyone wanting to marry a lady from the people of paradise, they should marry Ayman. Right? She was one of the earliest adherents to Islam. Okay. Which of you knew about this one? Put your hands up. What? So Samaya bin Khabar was married to Yasir. Samaya was a slave, but she was later freed after her marriage to Yasir, and she was described as having black skin and kinky hair in the texts. And she was one of the first martyrs of Islam, and she's known for having a strong and resilient character. She and her family were tortured by the Quraysh. Routinely, when the Prophet ﷺ would pass them, he would tell them, patience, the family of Yasir. Your destination is paradise. He will keep reminding them of that. One day when they were being tortured, they weren't letting go of Islam. Abu Jahl came to taunt them. And Sumaya, because of her character and her defiance, she said no, she's not going to accept that. And she replied back to Abu Jahl. He taunted her and she replied back to him. And he was so embarrassed that he killed her violently and she was martyred. Right, so that's the story of Sumaya. Black skin and kinky hair, she's described as. Jalal ibn Rabah, everybody's hand needs to go off this one. Everybody should know this one. So Jalal ibn Rabah was the first caller of the Adhan. And some scholars say this was the reward for the utmost resilience he had through the torture he received by the Quraysh. We repeat the words Ahadun Ahad, Ahadun Ahad. And he was holding onto the rope of Allah so tightly when he was being tortured, when they were pushing him to let go of his Islam. And so because he called out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his worst moments, he was allowed to call to Allah in the best moments. How many of you knew this one? Abu Dhar. Yeah. So Abu Dhar was he was one of the most honorable companions. He left thievery and alcoholism of his tribe even before he became Muslim. And he was so emboldened and uplifted by the message of Islam that he accepted it, and he went to the Kaaba and he was declaring his Islam openly. This was before Islam was probably spread, so he was declaring it. They would beat him. He would leave, yeah, he would come back again. They'd beat him, yeah, mashallah. That resilience, subhanAllah, So that's the story of Abu Dhar. And during the caliphate of Uthman, he was one of the most outspoken against the lavish lifestyle and large amounts of money certain Muslims were receiving from the treasury compared to other Muslims. So he was advocating for fairness. Okay, this is a big one. Maybe you guys, well, you won't believe me, but how many of you knew that? Wallahi, many texts, many references, and I'll read it out to you now as well. So many people do not know, but many texts describe him as being extremely dark and being black in skin color. SubhanAllah, you wouldn't have known it. I'll get you the book at the end and you can look at the references. Yeah. It was extremely dark. Extremely dark. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same as the Prophet Muhammad system. Yes. So it's brown.
Yeah, no, this is not from me, brother. The two brothers who study this in America, they've done all the research in Arabic. Yes, he did. Yeah. He told Bilal, you son of a black woman. Yeah. But the reason was Abu Dhar was not descended from slaves. So it wasn't about the complexion. Abu Dhar was not descended from slaves. Bilal ibn Rabah was descended from slaves. So because of that, regardless of complexion, he still thought himself to be better than him. That was the reason.
Because because even before he became the Islam, he came Prophet Muhammad called him the Arab. So Abu Dhar Ghafari was Arabic man.
But you can have black Arabs, brother. You can have black Arabs. That's the thing. You can have black Arabs, brother. That's the thing. My wife is Yemeni. She's black Arab. It's possible. You see what I'm saying? Hafsa bin Abu Bakr. Yeah. Yeah. What was her skin color? I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, brother. But I know that. She was dark skinned as well. Yeah. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know myself. These are the ones that I've researched and I've presented to you. But yeah, that's something from the brother that she was dark skinned. Because when we look at Umar ibn Khattab, he was actually descended from Abyssinians. When you look at his heritage, but we don't know these things, right? When you look at the Arabic text, and it's not just one, right? In the book, let me show you the book anyway, just so you brothers can see it. One second. I'll get my answer now. It's called Centering the Black Narrative by Ahmed Mubarak and Imam Dawood Walid in America. Let me just get it up so you can see that. But yeah, no, I did it, yeah. So I can get it up. Usually it's on my slide, but I think this is the old version of the slide. Can you see that? So this is the book. And he has a list of all the references at the back. So, it won't be right of me to come up here without having the resources and references to where that all of these things are coming from, right? A lot of people in America especially, and there's some scholars in the UK, that have traced back all of the texts and all of the writings on these companions and prophets as well. We have some black prophets. So Ali radiallahu anhu was extremely dark. That's what many of the texts say. And like we said, like we established, you can be dark and you can be Arab as well. You can be black and you can be Arab. And this is what I think a lot of people, for them, being black means you're African. You're directly African. If you trace back in the lineage, you will find African in it. But if you look at the mother, even the grandfather, they may not be African, right? If you look at, even in Palestine, you have a group of black Palestinians. Their ancestors came to Hajj, and then they settled in Palestine, right? So yes, the lineage goes back to Africa, but when you look at the mom, the father, the grandfather, even the great-grandfather, they're going to all have been based in that area, right? So if you look at this text anyway, for those of you that are interested, you will see that what it says about that. I'll get back to that. But so I'll give you the Arabic description of how he was described as well. So he was described as being Adam Shahid al-Udma. That's the Arabic that's used. So he's extremely dark. Okay. Prophets and messengers. Adam alayhi salam, his name, pardon me, is a clue. Musa alayhi salam. So Musa alayhi salam is mentioned in the Quran more than anyone else. And the Prophet did not just say he was black, he said that he resembled two of the darkest tribes amongst the Arabs. And these were the Azut and the Shamir. Right? So again, there's references for these things. The next one, Sulaiman alayhi salam, how many of you need them? Yeah? So he was typically described as being dark-skinned, and he's known to be one of the wisest prophets. Isa alayhi salam, I put this one here, but there's a bit of a disagreement in the text about him. So he's been described as being white in some narrations, and he's been described as being dark in some narrations, but it varies. So there's not a consensus on him. But I thought I'll just put it there just for your information. The Prophet ﷺ, he himself was not black, he wasn't described as black, but I put him there for discussion again because he's descended from Hajar, who is the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? Oh, just my mouth is quite dry actually. So the Prophet ﷺ was described as being white imbued with redness. So he's been described as the color of the pith of a date palm tree, which some people say is a reddish brown. So again, you can see he's varying a little bit, but that's that kind of color he was. And he was sometimes described as being dark, but not black skin. So either white imbued with redness, reddish brown, or dark. Yeah. So the reason I put this here, to be honest, is to show that the skin color of these companions and prophets and messengers didn't stop them from being righteous, right? And this is the example that all of us Muslims, there's not even a choice for us to follow, we have to follow it. So if the skin color couldn't stop these individuals, right, these righteous individuals, the most righteous individuals that have ever walked this earth, right, couldn't stop them from being righteous. You know, how is it that the skin color today is able to stop black people of today, black Muslims of today in our communities from being righteous, right? It's about the actions and the character, right? So we recognize people have differences, skin color, tribes, ethnicities, but we don't attach negative meanings to those skin colors and tribes and ethnicities because we have prophets, messengers, and companions who have the same skin colors, right? So we need to remember that. I'll just pick, here I have some, these are the old slides. My wife is, she does like graphic design. So I'm very terrible with computers. She helps me move around all the images, mashallah, to look nice. And you've got the old ones here now, forgive me. So, but it's still relevant anyway. The sister on the top, that is, does anybody know who that is? The Muslim woman on the top. On the bottom, does anybody recognize? So the top one is, we'll go with the Sheikh at the bottom, Sheikh Usman dan Fodio. Anybody heard of him? So Sheikh Usman dan Fodio, he founded the Sokoto Caliphate, right? Which was a caliphate in the, now it's northern Nigeria. And he was a military leader. He did it in the 1800s. It lasted for about 100 years. He did it, he was a military leader, a scholar, writer, and a reviver of Islam in the region. A lot of the Muslims at that time in the area were mixing paganism with Islam, and he wanted to revive Islam in the region. And so he united different regions in what is known as Northern Nigeria under the Sokoto Caliphate. He had many writings in Arabic. Even if you go to Northern Nigeria now, a lot of people speak English, but some of them won't speak English. They will speak their indigenous language, which is Fula or Hausa. There's many other languages in Nigeria, hundreds. I'm just giving you an example, Fula or Hausa, and then they'll speak Arabic as well. So they have that understanding and that education there. So you have many writings in Arabic, Hausa, and Fula. So the woman at the top is his daughter, Nana Asma. And she's a revered figure today in northern Nigeria, and she's known strongly for encouraging the leadership and education of women and girls in the region. And she wrote numerous works of poetry which integrated the thoughts of society, Islam, and medicine. Right? She became a counselor to her brother when her father passed away, when her brother became the caliph. And she's recorded writing instructions to governors and debating with scholars of foreign princes. She was very learned. And what she used to do, she also wrote in Arabic and Fula and Hausa. She would have a delegation that would go to all the houses where there were women, and they would teach the women in their houses Arabic. They would teach them practical skills, different things. Right, so those are two examples. Okay. And now, I'm just going to So I don't know if you want to discuss, brothers. I thought it would be nice just amongst yourselves, just to have like a 1 minute chat just between yourselves about maybe examples you've seen, and then just to feed it back, just so we can hear some more examples and then speak about some solutions as well, inshallah. So inshallah, if we just give it 1 minute, inshallah, and then we'll come back and then we'll discuss. We can do that. And I can have some more water as well. I mean, for me, as a convert, one of the things I saw about Muslims is the actions. It's not that Muslims are perfect, but what are they trying to do? What is, especially I used to have friends, maybe they were just talking and they're going to pray. Right? We can be eating or laughing or doing something like, brother, I need to go pray, but I'll be back. I'm like, we're doing something, where are you going? You're interrupting everything just to pray. Like, what's motivating you for that? Right, and so when like you're saying, we already have the text is there, but we need to start living it, isn't it? And when we start living Islam, that's when we can really see our strength and the unity coming together. So, Jazakallah khair, I appreciate it. Does anybody have any? Bismillah. So, just to give you some examples that I've heard as well, and then I'll go into some solutions and I'll give you the resources, and inshallah we'll wrap up. I think in one talk last week, a sister said that someone told her that when black people go into the grave, that their skin becomes whiter as a form of like purification. The thing is, if you have knowledge, then you can easily swap this away, but not everybody. Some people are at different levels, and especially I've had black people, maybe they're looking for guidance for the message, right? And then when they hear things like this, it can sometimes put them off. And like the brother was saying, dawah is so important, right? And it doesn't mean we need to change what Islam is saying. We present it as it is. It's beautiful as it is, right? We don't need to make it seem like something it's not, but as it is, like all we've presented here, Islam has the solution to all of these problems that we're facing today. Right? Malcolm X, he said that Islam, he believes, is the solution to racism because of the way it can change the mind, the soul, the spirit. The message that it has, it pushes you as a person to be better, right? And so we shouldn't have these kind of instances where Muslims are saying such hurtful things to each other. I know of some other Muslims, they said that they've been asked to recite Fatiha just to prove that they're a Muslim. And one sister, she was even wearing hijab, and they told her to recite the Fatiha. And we shouldn't be trialing each other like this, we should assume the assumption that she's a Muslim, why is she wearing the hijab if she's not a Muslim? And if I come and I say I'm a Muslim, I shouldn't have to prove it to you, right? A Muslim's word is supposed to be enough, right? So I'll go to some solutions, inshallah. So just for some more context, I was the vice president in FOSIS for the political kind of political organizing. And so you really have to use your brain to strategize and come up with solutions and things. And so these were the considerations for me whenever I'm dealing with something, and I use it in any social situation I'm in. And first of all, was the person being malicious? Were they trying to harm with their action? Was the intention to harm? Or were they just ignorant or they didn't know, right? Those are two different. One's intention is to harm, one is not to harm, right? And so from that, you can be proportionate in your reaction, right? If somebody is trying to harm you, you'll defend yourself with a bit more strength, right? If somebody is unknowing and you can have a nice conversation about it and try and convince them, make them understand. And then did it happen in public or in private? If something happened in private, generally it's better to keep it in private, right? If something happened in public, from what I've been told, maybe you can respond in public, but sometimes what I like to do is, even if it happened in public, can I try and talk to that person, away from, especially, on social media, when it's out on there, when you're replying to somebody, sometimes you get in a back and forth and you can't be true with the other person, right? So having a wisdom, does it require admonishment? So does the person basically, do they need scolding? Or does it require a lengthy discussion, a sit-down discussion? Let's have a talk about this. And is this the best time to approach the issue, right? Sometimes it's not always the best time, right? Because we're rushing or doing something. Or sometimes when I do this talk, I say, whether it's with your parents or with your elders, I know that if I wash the dishes, I can talk to my parents. That's the best time. They like that stuff a lot. When the chores are done, their ears are open for everything. If the chores are not done, their ears are closed. So, for the youth, it's a good thing for them to know that there's a time and there's a way to have that discussion, right? And so, these are just a few things quickly. So using Islam as proof we are not racist. Islam is not racist, of course. Islam is for everybody, but Muslims, sometimes our behaviors can be racist, right? So we just have to be better, encourage each other to do better. Right? Sometimes as well, something I see is that some things from online, some brothers start regurgitating it, right? Has anybody heard of critical race theory, for example? Yeah. Some brothers, they say that anything that is advocating against racism, it's not from Islam, right? This is critical race theory. This is not from Islam. But as I've demonstrated, it's for the Muslim to be against racism, right? So there's nothing wrong from this. This is from Islam, right? So something for us to remember. So I'll move on to the next slide because we're kind of going. But take the issue seriously. Be careful what you speak on and research first, because speaking in depth on topics, as Muslims, we shouldn't speak of our knowledge. I can't come in front of you here and say things I'm not absolutely sure of, especially even just one Muslim to another Muslim. I can't do that, right? So research what you're saying and have wisdom. Think about, is this the best time to speak? Yeah? And so be empathetic and understanding. Practice that emotional intelligence. Seek advice on activities and solutions. And educate yourself on Black history. Yeah, so I'll just have some resources here that you can screenshot for yourselves, and then inshallah we'll be done and we'll be able to pray Shah. Inshallah. So this is Black and Muslim in Britain. It's a video series on YouTube. It's a really good one. It speaks about the perspective and experiences of Black Muslims in Britain. This is Blackness and Islam by Dawood Walid, forward by Professor Jalal. The African Caliphate, the life and works of teaching of Sheikh Usman Danfodio, who I spoke about, and Malcolm X's autobiography. That's a really good one for you to read. All Muslims should read that one. And then Centering the Black Narrative. So this was the book. Please, if you want to see all the references, there are just pages and pages of them for the colors of the companions and the prophets. May peace be upon them, you can look there. The Walking Quran talks about the embodied knowledge and Islamic education in West Africa. And the last one, Beyond Bilal, Black History in Islam. So those are just some resources for you, brothers. Please, if you see any wrongs going on around you or anything, you can change. Please, I really encourage you to do something about it. May Allah forgive us for where we haven't done these things. May He guide us to what is right, and may He unite us as an ummah.